This video is brought to you by Milanote.
Today's video is going to be extremely frightening for me. This is going to be extremely frightening for me to experience. I've been hitting at it for a couple of weeks now, but I am making an elaborate creature costume for this year's spooky season. The general premise with this costume is that I'm going absolutely overboard with making myself look inhuman. I don't want to have human proportions, human posture, and I don't want to have human height. The particular spooky little guy I want to become is often depicted with a leg a little bit more like a dog's leg, a bit more like this. And this creature also possesses inhuman, towering height.
So given all these requirements, I realized
I'm probably gonna have to make stilts for this, aren't I?
Now there is a company called Area 51 out of the UK that makes the exact kind of digitigrade stilt that I would need, and an acquaintance of mine in the crafting community, Charlotte from over at Miss Twisted, has bought and used these exact stilts, and she told me they're sturdy, worth the price, and they'd be absolutely perfect for a monster design.
And I would just buy these, but oh boy, look at that price tag, and we haven't even factored in shipping yet.
To clarify, I'm sure these stilts are extremely well made and worth every penny. They're just definitely out of my budget for this project.
So I figured I could either shell out 1,500 plus American dollars to purchase these from someone who actually knows what they're doing, or I could utilize my endless well of crafter's audacity by making some following this tutorial that I found on the internet by random Canadian on the Autodesk Instructables website. Now, have I built literally anything mechanical before? No. Not even a little bit. And therein lies the cosmic horror that I experience at the prospect of this project. Now, the original poster of the tutorial does have pretty detailed plans laid out. Everything for the most part is there. I have perused the tutorial many times. I have read it through, and even though I have zero experience in this, I think that this is something that I can hopefully do. One of the things I'm really trying to do with this costume overall is push myself, kind of gradually go more towards the direction of cosplay that I want to do. Adding mechanical pieces or servos or animatronics to my costumes in general are definitely something I want to learn how to do, integrate more into my project, and I think that this is an okay baby step since someone else has theoretically already figured everything out for me. So the first step of this project is going to be to find all of the materials listed because, oh boy, there are so many of them, and I don't even know what half of these are.
The gathering materials phase of the project was long and annoying. I first started by checking my local Lowe's for everything, and the only things that I found there were the aircraft cable and the turnbuckles. My partner did me a solid and was able to find a lot of the hardware that I needed at a local fastener store, but they didn't have everything I needed, of course, so I managed to find all the other hardware either off the internet or at Ace Hardware, which I should have checked sooner because they had half the stuff that I needed and couldn't find. The Sintra plastic recommended for the brace pieces in the tutorial was incredibly difficult to find. I eventually managed to order some from a sign company, which thankfully wasn't a scam, but this stuff was way too expensive and I probably should have just used something like hardened leather instead. Finally, I managed to find all of the aluminum and steel pieces for this project at my local metal supermarkets, and the folks there were super helpful with this. They'll even make another later appearance in this video that will save us a lot of work. I will include a link to a document in the description of where I found all of my materials if it's helpful for y'all if you want to make this. Just know hunting everything down is absolutely a bit of a process, and you might be better off improvising in a couple of places to suit what you have access to.
After literally like a month of rounding up materials, I finally have almost everything. I'm still missing like 6 nuts and bolts. Apparently it's really hard to find a 5.5-inch grade 8 bolt, but I will find it. This is my entire Dragon's Hoard of materials. There's a lot here. This aluminum bar was very difficult to fit in my vehicle. So now that I actually have everything that I need to start, according to the tutorial, next I need to measure my leg in a couple of key places so that I can start laying out the leg support pieces. I don't know exactly what to call them. So I think there's about 6 measurements that I'm going to need here. The first one is my thigh circumference about 4 inches above my knee. The next one is the midpoint of my thigh. My calf now also has to be measured about 4 inches below the knee, so about right here. And I'm literally just gonna mark this with a pen because the next measurement is about 6 inches below this. About here. which I'm also going to mark with the pen. Next, I need to be wearing the tennis shoes that I'm gonna wear with this, because the measurement is going to be my total leg height, including the shoes I'm gonna wear. This next one is from the fold of my knee to my ankle, and the final one is taken from the bottom of my shoe to the midpoint of my ankle. I have also now printed out all of the building plans and templates, and I should be able to use the templates that he made as a base and then just alter them to fit my measurements. And as usual, I'm gonna pattern mine onto a thick piece of poster board so that the pattern is a little bit sturdier and transfers to my cintra a little easier.
In order to fit my thighs and calves to his template, there is a tiny bit of math that I have to do here. But honestly, the change for my legs is super marginal and there's barely any difference from his templates in the end. Since I'm trying to be as precise as possible, I did account for this marginal difference, and from there I just mirrored his template pieces in order to get my fit.
Okay, let's see how these templates fit and if I need to make any adjustments. So for the thigh piece, according to the pictures, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to sit a little bit more like this, higher on the thigh. And this is actually supposed to sit lower on the calf as well. And your actual joint is gonna end up about right here. I think for that placement, these are good and I don't need to make any major alterations.
With everything laid out, I transferred those pieces to my cintra, trying to conserve as much material as possible, and I also drafted a quick pattern for the pieces that are going to anchor my feet in. These pieces are going to be shaped later with some heat, so the pattern itself is literally just a 2" by 12" long rectangle. Those also got transferred onto my cintra, which means that's all ready for cutting, and I'm on to drafting out everything else. I started with this solid aluminum block, which is going to be cut into 4 pieces so that they can act as spacers on either side of each ankle. I used my speed square and a pen for this to keep everything tidy and precise. Next, I laid out the ankle support pieces, which thankfully the drawing for this is actually to scale, so I was able to use it as a template here and there and make my marks a little bit more exact, but I also did make sure to double check my measurements just in case. Finally, I could draft out the rectangular foot base, which is made out of a steel rectangular tube because it's a part of the stilt that is going to be taking the most force. This piece mostly has a couple holes in it to anchor some bolts in place. It has a slit at the end that the turnbuckle slots into later on, and the length of it is somewhat up to your taste, up to a certain point at least, because a steeper angle does add a lot more fatigue to your thighs. But I made mine just an inch or two longer than the original tutorial, with the thought that I could just cut off the bottom if they end up being too tall. Now, the only pieces I didn't lay out here were the aluminum brace pieces, which are pretty important. They do form the main structure of the stilt, and the reason I didn't lay them out here was somehow the original aluminum bar we purchased was not the correct thickness. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but we do acquire the correct thickness later on. Turns out a 3/8 of an inch thick 12-foot aluminum bar stock is a lot more expensive than a 1/8 of an inch 12-foot long aluminum bar stock. It's almost as if it's like 3 times as much material as the original piece we purchased.
And since the cost of this project has been so very expensive, I am thrilled to partner once again with this video's sponsor, Milanote. If you're not familiar with Milanote, they're a tool for planning creative projects. Fun fact, I was actually using Milanote to plan this project before they ever reached out to me offering to sponsor this video, so that is about as authentic of an endorsement as you can get. When you begin building your project, you can choose from over 100 different project templates that are tailored to different niches. I chose the project plan template, which gives you lots of lovely options to begin building from. I really love using Milanote for this project because it was a super sprawling process. I kept coming up with new ideas, and as I came up with different project elements and aspects of the costume to explore, I could easily just create new boards dedicated to each of those different topics where I could keep everything super organized, brainstorm, lay all my plans out, organize it like materials, purchases, and stuff like that. Of course, I'm only focusing on the legs in this video, which alone required so much research and materials planning, and thankfully Milanote allows me to easily drop links onto my board wherever I'd like to keep different sources organized. You can even add checklists to categorize my huge list of materials, or even check off different important tasks to keep me on schedule. And this convenience applies even more to some of my other more visual boards, like my design inspo board. With their web clipper browser extension, I can save photos and videos to any given board as I'm browsing the web and easily arrange them on my board later, which which saves me so much time. And I love how aesthetic you can make all of this. I mean, it's on theme. It's making my brain happy. I am a very visual person whenever I am creating plans like this. I really like to see everything laid out in front of me, which is why I love all the little annotations that you can do. I use these little notes and written annotations all the time. You can add little arrows to boards like this to like point to things and say, hey, this is about this. Hey, I'm thinking about this image and this image whenever I'm making this notation. I also love this little color palette feature. You can just take and drag out a color palette, and then you can go in here and select whatever color you want. This is really great for visualizing different color combinations, keeping everything straight in your head. I've used this a ton on this project to kind of emphasize the bold reds and blacks and grays, but also experiment with some like neutral colors and maybe even more of a lamp tone to accent things. And another one of my favorite tools that Milanote has is their little draw tool that they have here. Literally just a pencil that you can go and doodle on top of things with. I use this a ton, whether to make notes or just to add little doodles, diagrams. I made a little title with it here. It is so helpful to have a tool that I can go and just literally draw out whatever is on my mind directly on my board where everything else is. Add little annotations and notes to it. I absolutely love this tool. I find it so helpful. And I didn't end up using it for this project, but I also think it's really cool that Milanote has a collaboration mode if you work with a team where you can send your collaborators an editor's link, which allows multiple people to use the same workspace, brainstorm in real time with other creatives on your project, and even leave feedback on different aspects of your project, which is absolutely something I'm going to utilize as soon as I do any kind of collaborative project. It has been so incredibly helpful to have one place to refer back to as I shop and research for this instead of a bajillion different Pinterest boards and Word documents. So if you need a way to keep your next creative project organized, Milanote is free to use with no time limit. Sign up with the link in my description today. And as always, thank you so much to Milanote for sponsoring this video. I will never financially recover from this, but with their help, I am just a little bit closer. So now I need to cut everything, and I don't have any of the stuff that I need to cut things at my house.
But my partner's dad was kind enough to let us use his shop, which had pretty much all the tools we needed.
So the building plans say that you can cut pretty much everything with a hacksaw, which I do have at my place, but that's gonna take way too long. I just kind of don't feel like messing with that. So I went to the wholesale tool supply store and I picked myself up a super cheap jigsaw for about $35. So I'm gonna cut these plastic pieces with the jigsaw because I feel like that's going to be the easiest thing for this level of precision. And then everything else, I think we're just gonna cut the angle grinder, which does scare me. Thankfully, I have an expert on staff with me today.
So I figured a jigsaw would be the best thing to cut this plastic in order to get around those curves without cracking it, and a jigsaw cut through it fine. But it turned out to be a little too flimsy for me to cut with the jigsaw, which is fine. I've been needing to buy one of these for myself anyways. So instead, my partner did a little bit of chaotic leather working boy nonsense and just cut the entire thing for me with a razor blade, which actually worked just fine. You do not need a saw to cut through this stuff, it turns out.
Meanwhile, this jigsaw is sitting here all sad.
After we cut out all the centerpieces, and by we, I mean my boyfriend, we were on to cutting some metal and also trying to drill some holes. We started by trying to cut that thick aluminum block with an angle grinder, which was cutting, but then I did a quick Google search for safety, and you're not supposed to cut aluminum with an angle grinder. Something hazardous and scary might happen apparently, so
we're gonna try a hacksaw.
Trying to do this on a slab of aluminum this thick was a pain in the keister. I do not know how the man in the tutorial managed to do it. The cuts were nearly impossible to keep straight, and it looked like garbage. These pieces are spacers, so they need to be straight and precise, so it was a little bit back to the drawing board there.
Alright, I'm going to set these aside, and we're gonna get something else for this, because this is stupid.
So instead, we moved on to cutting the foot base piece, which is steel, so it can be cut with the angle grinder. It mostly just needed 2 individual cuts to set the length, and a bunch of holes drilled in it. And this is the part of the video where incorrectly assuming this drill press worked came back to bite me in the butt, because this thing very much did not work. We could not get her going no matter what we did. And I really thought we would have a drill press to help us with the holes through the metal that need to be in very specific places. So instead, my partner was an absolute trooper and helped me drill all these holes with just a regular handheld power drill, and it was a miserable, long experience, very annoying. But thankfully the steel was not that bad since it was a thinner material. And once all the holes were drilled in the foot bases, he was also able to quickly cut out that slot with his angle grinder, making sure the turnbuckle could slot in with plenty of ease and also fit the bolt. What was I doing during all of this, you might be wondering? I was drilling stupid holes in plastic. It was very strenuous work, thank you for asking. With the foot base and brace pieces out of the way, we started cutting the ankle supports with a hacksaw, which was annoying, but it was actually doable since it was a significantly thinner material than that other block, and there weren't that many pieces to cut, so we just put our vigor into it and powered through. The last thing we tackled that evening was drilling holes through the 3/8 of an inch thick aluminum, which I can only imagine was once again extremely annoying because my partner also handled this one. I was nursing a shoulder injury at this point, and frankly still am. Regular viewers of the channel, yep, it's that same shoulder injury. I should probably go to the doctor. Anyways, my partner did this by drilling a smaller hole and then going up in size one to get the hole size we actually needed. He also used a little bit of lubricant throughout the process to prevent the metal from overheating and reduce the friction a little bit. This made the holes a lot easier to drill, even though it was still pretty annoying. Anyways, hey, you're the best. Thank you for doing this for me whenever you watch this. The holes were not perfect because hand-drilled holes really never are, but they worked. So after this first day of cutting and machining, I went back to the metal supermarkets in order to acquire the correct aluminum bar for the brace pieces, which I got pre-cut to the correct lengths this time so I could actually fit it in my car. And while I was at it, I also had them cut and machine this foot pad because I could not find anything to make this out of at any general box store myself. And I also had them cut and drill the holes in the ankle support blocks because, again, trying to spend the time to do this ourselves was just not worth it at all. So with all those pieces acquired, it was back to the shop for another day of cutting. So first we were going to try and tackle the thigh and calf support pieces. So after I went back and added all of the correct measurements to those, we started trying to add the joint that he has in the building plans, which essentially removes a little bit of material on both sides of the joint to allow them to slot into each other. This makes the joint flush and takes a little bit of tension off your knee, but we didn't think it was absolutely essential. And he also cuts this with a hacksaw, which we haven't had the best track record with. So we decided not to cut the slot, but to just round the curves instead by cutting off a little bit at a time with a hacksaw and then grinding and smoothing the rest down, which did end up being a pretty essential step for making the knee fit together later on. Next, it was time to drill all the holes in the brace pieces, which we did attempt, but this time we were drilling through 3/8 of an inch aluminum instead of only 1/8, so this was going to take a really long time to do. Our drill bits were not holding up particularly well, so eventually we made the executive decision to take this back to the metal supermarkets and have them do it, which is probably what I should have done in the first place. They already cut these for me. I could have just had them drill the holes at the same time. And this was also the point of the project where it dawned on me, with the amount that I paid in labor to have someone else do all the drilling, I could have purchased a new drill press, but you know, you live and you learn. Anyways, after taking a little time to deburr the pieces that we had already completed to make sure that they were safe to hold and work with, I grabbed my heat gun and started working on the heat shaping process for the brace pieces, which is like pretty easy and intuitive. I work with Warbla all the time on this channel, which is another thermoplastic, so it's very much the same principle. Sintra is just thicker, so it takes a little bit longer to heat up, but I just preheated all of the pieces and then held them up to my leg and shaped them around my leg in the position they're supposed to sit in at the end, making sure to wear thick pants in the process of doing this because the pieces are going to be quite warm while you're working with them. And after a little bit of time and finessing, I got all those pieces for the legs shaped up. Finally, I was going to shape the toe cup pieces, which I started to do, and I almost immediately became very skeptical of this material for the toe area. For pieces with large surface area, like the thighs, they felt fine, it was sturdy, but since the toes were so narrow, it felt like working with cardboard. So I kind of abandoned these pieces pretty quick in order to do a little bit of brainstorming to find a better material.
Good morning. I'm coming to you from a car once again. So last night we made kind of the executive decision that it was going to take way too long to drill those holes ourselves. It really hurt us that that drill press is not working. So today I'm going to go back to the machine shop. I already called. They said they can drill the holes for me. I'm just going to have them do it. I was initially trying to keep costs down and that sort of thing, but right now I think time is a little bit more important. So hopefully we can drill the holes, get this finished up real quick because I do really need to get started on the assembly stuff. So we are finally, hopefully, hopefully done with all the machining and the metal prep work, all that like real stressful stuff. So I think I'm almost ready to work on assembly, but before I do that, there's a couple of little auxiliary tasks that I need to do in order to finish prepping all of this stuff. Mainly, I have a bunch of straps that I need to hand make because it was gonna just be like expensive and annoying to buy the pre-made straps. But the main thing I think I'm gonna do is maybe try and reinforce these thigh pieces, because plastic is like okay, but it's also a lot softer than I expected it to be. I expected to have to cut through this with a jigsaw. I'm concerned about the stress of all the mechanical bits being anchored onto just this. So in order to kind of reinforce that, make me feel a little bit better, I have a bunch of leather lying around from previous projects, and I think I am just going to see if I can back these in some leather just to give them one extra layer of reinforcement. And that layer is also going to double as like more of a comfort layer, and I can also add another layer of like foam on top of that if I really have to, in order to like provide just a little bit more comfort. That's what I've seen most other people do. So once I get it assembled, there's going to be a couple of like comfort things that I have to do, I'm sure, in order to make this a little bit more wearable for longer periods of time. In the meantime, I think this will maybe work okay.
So to add that leather backing to my brace pieces, I just traced my original templates and cut them out. And I glued them together with contact cement, making sure to spread the glue on the rough side of the leather because it has more surface area and grit to it. And yes, I absolutely should have done this before I shaped the plastic pieces, but I didn't want to waste the material. So I made do and tried to line them up as best as I could whenever I was actually gluing them together. Later, I even used some parchment paper to help me with that. And I also didn't drill the holes through the leather until after I glued it. That way I didn't have to worry about lining those up. My drill was a little annoying for this because my bits kinda suck, but it got the job done, and these pieces are already feeling so much stronger than they originally were. Next, I started working on sewing the straps. 12 straps are needed for this design, 6 for each leg and 2 for each section of the leg. So that's 2 for the thigh, 2 for the calf, and 2 for the toe cup. I started by measuring out all the lengths of nylon webbing that I need according to the measurements he provides in the building plans. Once those were cut, I melted the ends with a lighter to prevent fraying. And the first step is to sew one of these tri-rings to the end of each strap. This is what is going to connect the strap to the leg assembly itself. I just folded the nylon over the ring about 1 inch and sewed over it in an X formation, making sure to backstitch a lot to reinforce everything and make sure that ring is really on there nice and snug. I followed that step for all 12 of the straps, and whenever it came to the Velcro, he kind of had weirdly specific measurements for this, but since the strap is gonna fold over on itself, you can pretty much just make half the strap the hook side of the Velcro, which is the rougher side, and just make the other half the loop side of the Velcro, which is the softer side. And that's exactly what I did. And after lots and lots of sewing, I had all of my completed straps, and making these was not nearly as annoying as I expected, just mildly annoying. And just when I was all finished with that and thought we were about to start being able to assemble everything,
this has definitely been one of the most humbling projects I've ever done. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that. That's so depressing. Okay.
This is why hand drilling holes is super hard and really inefficient for the most part. This took us back over to the shop because we figured we could get everything to align properly by just wallowing out some of those holes a little bit. For some of the holes, this meant just going up a drill bit size in order to make the hole slightly bigger to give us more clearance. And for some of the holes, this meant really over drilling it and working the angles and just... Thankfully, by mixing and matching some of our pieces to figure out which ones already fit best together and just doing a little bit of over drilling here and there and just a touch of nonsense.
It does look a little jank, but...
You know, it's not the prettiest thing, but if it's functional, that's fine. Nice.
We were able to get all of these ankle assemblies to fit together well. And once it was together, my partner said it looked like this weapon from the Fallout series.
Do you know what the weapon's called?
Power sledge, I think?
Power sledge?
If you're ever having trouble with something, just turn it into a little guy and it'll work out.
Think I'll steal your leader.
Anyways, after a quick puppy visit,
Does she want back outside already?
And a few more shenanigans,
Now they kind of look like weird crossbows.
We cut off the back edge of the very bottom of each leg in order to get that foot pad to pivot a little bit more freely and just fit a little bit better on there. And then it was time to do a rough assembly on the brace pieces to make sure they were fitting correctly. The knee joint is fitted with a nylon fender washer in between the two pieces in order to get the joint to pivot freely whenever you're wearing it so your knee can actually bend.
There you go.
My partner immediately wanted to turn this into a flail.
Love how every piece comes together and you're like, this is a weapon now.
The aluminum support pieces are then fastened to the plastic brace pieces using T-nuts. These have teeth on them that sink into the material whenever you tighten the bolt. This prevents the bolt from backing out and keeps it snug in place. And in the original design, he does have some countersunk holes in the aluminum to keep that T-nut in place. We did not cut that in our aluminum pieces because adding that leather backing provided plenty of material for those teeth to bite onto. Like I said, we first did a rough assembly without straps to make sure everything was fitting together well and to make sure my knee could actually bend in these. This also took a little bit of wallowing and finessing, and in this shot, my partner is standing on the desk over top of me for some reason. He was having a lot of fun with the cameraman position here. Before assembling the final brace, I had to do a flail test. And after that, my two braces were roughly assembled.
Like a man who's caught 2 giant trout. Or whatever people fish.
And we're fitting on my legs quite nicely.
So we made a good bit of progress on the assembly yesterday. We've got most of the components kind of roughly put together just to make sure the holes are actually aligning now and the fit is okay. Braces especially are coming together very nicely. I feel like I've got a good range of motion going on. They still need straps, but we're about to do that part. And the foot itself also is in a good place. We've got to lock this in and then attach the brace to the rest of this assembly here. So between just trying to get all of this dialed in and installing the toe clip and the aircraft cable, it's a little ambitious, but I'm hoping we can get mostly done with this today. That way I can do final fittings later this week and, of course, learn how to walk in these, which is going to be no small task, I'm sure. I very much do not want to fall on my butt or injure myself, so I'm gonna try to take that as slow as I can. So let's go back inside the shop and see if we can finish up assembly. Come on.
We started by reassembling the brace pieces. First, we switched the direction of the bolt on the knee around to make it a little bit more comfortable. Then we reassembled the brace pieces to fit the straps. This mostly meant adding a nut on the bolt to use as a spacer so that the strap has a little bit of space to move around. This gave the braces a nice fit, but also led to the discovery that the straps were entirely too short. Thighs fit okay, but were not nearly long enough to feel secure, and the calves barely fit at all. I should have measured these before making them, but my partner is also roughly the same size and height as the person who made the tutorial, and they didn't fit him either, so I don't know who these straps are for.
So for temporary fitting purposes, what I did with the straps is I took the long straps off the top, put them on the bottom so that we can actually strap my calf in this to get the cable placed and everything. So that means I should only have to remake 4 straps for the top, which I hopefully have enough leftover material for, and these fit the calf way better.
With some temporary straps in place, we moved on to attaching the braces to the foot base assembly. My braces were long enough to drill through the leather and plastic, so we put the ankle bolt through all the layers and added a T-nut on the back to anchor into the leather like we did on the other brace pieces. The ankle assembly also gets a nylon washer between the two metal pieces to reduce friction and help the ankle move a little bit more. With both of the ankle assemblies done, I could do a quick test, which worked out just fine. And then we were finally on to installing the aircraft cable and turnbuckle, which is a very important part of the entire build. This cable serves as your leg's new tendon when you stand upright, so it needs to be very secure. This is accomplished by making a 1-inch loop at one end of your aircraft cable and securing it in place with a cable sleeve. The tutorial says to crimp the aircraft cable sleeve with a hammer, so that's what we did. We then secured one end of the cable to the leg brace with a T-nut, bolt, and fender washer. The turnbuckle is then placed in the slot at the back of the foot placed and secured with a bolt. We then threaded the aircraft cable through the turnbuckle, set the knee joint at a right angle so we could estimate the tension for the aircraft cable. We measured the cable length that extends to the other side of the brace, set that side in a cable sleeve, and when all of that was set in place, we could adjust the tension of the turnbuckle, which determines how tight or loose your new tendon is. And finally, after we followed the exact same steps on the other stilt, I was able to do a quick tension test.
We still have, obviously, like the toe pad and everything to put on, but we've tightened the turnbuckle in the back, and I can feel the stilt like working and doing its thing. It feels really cool. Once I get everything else in place, it feels good. I'm thinking it should work really well. Hello it's the next day. So I have just a couple of steps left to do before I'm ready to actually try these on and see if they work. Mainly, I gotta make new straps. I have to make and then mount the toe pads because I don't like how they look right now. And then I have to do a final fitting, tighten everything up, and put Loctite on all of these nuts so that this stuff isn't going anywhere. But first things first, I'm gonna remake the straps for the thighs, doing it the way I probably should have done it in the first place. By measuring. These straps were fine for the thighs, but I think it's just going to be way more secure if there's a lot more surface area and they loop all the way around. So this time I'm going to measure a length of strap that will actually do that. Go from one side to the other side and loop all the way around and have as much surface area contact with the Velcro as possible, because I think that's going to be not only safer, but also a lot more comfortable on my thighs. And then I'm going to stitch them up the same way I did the first time. Hopefully I'll have enough nylon and Velcro to do this. And I will have to take apart some of this assembly in order to put those straps back on, which is vaguely annoying, but it's pretty much unavoidable at this point. So by the time I do all that, I will have much more functional straps that actually go all the way back across my leg and have a really secure fit. You know, I was going over my to-do list to make sure I hadn't forgotten something, and of course I did. It always happens. Thankfully, you know, my partner remembered the most important step of this entire process. Thank you for that.
So shifting back to the unfinished toe cups, instead of reusing these two pieces, since I had already heat shaped them, I decided to cut new pieces. Don't worry, these will not get thrown away. I'll find a use for them at some point. But by redrafting the pattern on the cintra, it meant whenever I was adding the leather backing to everything, I could actually glue it flat this time, which I think was pretty important to the structural integrity of this piece of the stilt. This time, whenever I was ready to heat shape them, I was also a little smarter and did a bit more marking and measuring first to make sure that 45-degree angle was actually coming out and it fit my shoes very well. I also used a scrap piece of steel material to shape it so I had a nice edge going on. I think these turned out way better second time around, and I'm really glad I remade them. Once they were shaped to finish them up, I cut off the excess like he does in the tutorial, and then I drilled a hole in the bottom where they attach to the foot base, and then I also drilled holes in both sides of the top where the straps are going to connect. I did my hardware for these a little differently than he did because I wanted more room for my tri-rings to be able to move around, so I used a T-nut on the back, once again digging into the leather, 2 nuts as spacers, and a washer on that to secure everything in place, and this provided plenty of room for my straps to thread through. And the straps themselves are attached in a similar way to this hole on the side of the ankle support.
Okay, so I had a little bit of an incident whenever I was doing my strap test. I was trying it on, it was going pretty good, but as soon as I put any weight on the stilt, unfortunately, the aircraft cable just immediately pulled out of that cable sleeve. I'm sure if you really work at it and you're extremely precise, you can get a hammer to work to secure those cable sleeves, but I also do not want to take any risks whenever it comes to, you know, the breaking of my bones. So yesterday I went out and I got the correct tool for securing those cable sleeves, and I'm just gonna use this instead. I'm basically gonna redo that, set it with this instead, and then do another test to make sure that it's actually going to hold the weight that it's supposed to hold. I do feel like this is very necessary for setting those because that is literally the part that is holding up most of your weight. So I disagree with the method in the tutorial. There's some areas that you probably just don't want to skimp on with this project, and I do think this is one of them. Be safe if you decide to make these.
Once again, we went back over to the shop to reset these pieces. This time we also left a little bit more slack out of the cable sleeve to help secure it even more. And I am really glad that I ended up getting this tool to secure the sleeves. It's a little tricky to get them clamped down at first, but once you do, it really cinches the aircraft cable in there, and you can even cinch it multiple times. Just by looking at this, you can definitely tell that it is much more secure than the hammer method that we were using before. While we were cutting and installing the new aircraft cables, because I did not reuse the old one, these old cable sleeves were way too annoying to get back off, I cut some of the aircraft cable and learned how to use the angle grinder for the first time.
Baby's first angle grinder.
Anyways, once we had crimped both ends of our new aircraft cables, so we installed it back in place.
I'm totally returning that thing to Lowe's though.
Which meant it was time for me to try and stand in my mostly completed stilts for the very first time.
Can you walk around? Oh,
Trying.
what are we thinking?
Guys, I think we kind of did it. This is gonna take so long to learn to walk in, but like, they work. I have no balance in these yet,
Oh no.
but I'm tall. Well, I can stand in them, but I don't know if I can walk in them. So these stilts obviously work. They're also extremely difficult to walk in, and I think that is largely due to a number of fit issues that I need to now try and problem solve to make these actually functional. I'm still trying to nail down exactly what is going on with the fit, but a big problem that I was having last night whenever I was trying to experiment with these was whenever I would take a step, my foot would not stay in this toe pad here, and it would just slip back, meaning I had like really no traction, no leverage, made my balance terrible. So honestly, I didn't even really try to walk a whole lot because I was really afraid of falling down and injuring myself. My partner and I actually both tried these out because they fit both of us, and in the course of experimenting, we both did fall down once, but I consider it a little bit of a win because we fell down, we did not injure ourselves, the stilts are okay, so at least I have my first fall test in these. That makes me slightly less nervous. Right now, I'm feeling like I need to do a little bit of additional research to figure this out and get these working really, really well. I think the toe problem could be solved by just moving this entire toe pad up a little bit on the stilt and definitely adding some straps that go around the back of my ankle to secure it in place a little bit more and keep me from slipping backwards. I also feel like on other people's stilts, this cable here anchors in your ankle a little bit more. It's just closer to where the back of your ankle falls. So I feel like I could even just move those holes and that little slot where this slips in order to use this to hold my ankle in place a bit more, because right now my ankle falls like right here, and I don't think that's quite correct. I think some of my fit issues here are just me having a really small foot size. My partner did not have the same foot issues that I had here because his foot actually stayed in place with all of this. I think anchoring my foot into place and making sure it doesn't move around on me is a big key to making these actually function properly. I also think there's a couple more comfort things that need to be done. There are a couple of places where they're digging into me, things that I would prefer to not happen if I'm going to wear these for a long period of time. So I think just like adding some foam inserts in a couple of places, just padding them out will help tremendously. And finally, I know it gives the bottom of the toes a really low profile, makes them look a lot more like a deer. It's creepy, spooky, but I absolutely hate the design of this toe pad. It's just way too small for my liking. I don't like the fact that it pivots. It makes it really, really difficult to balance. I really want to replace the toe pads with something that has a lot more surface area, something that is going to help me balance and pivot more naturally. Thankfully for that, I think a great design already exists. The company that makes Digilegs, I think, has a much better foot design for theirs, so I probably should have just tried to emulate this a little bit more in the first place. I also wasn't sure what to get. Again, I'm very new to this, so in the future, I think I'm gonna try to make something a lot closer to this with maybe a couple of modifications to fit more of the costume that I'm trying to build on top of it. But overall, I think that is the direction I'm gonna try and go in. I did go as far as to put these on one more time for you guys just to kind of show what it's like walking in them. My upward mobility is quite good. Like I can stand up, I can squat down, like the knee support is really, you know, Toast is also here. Walking forward, walking backwards, anything like that. The confidence is just simply not there, and I don't feel safe enough doing that yet at this point. I know that this is not really the most bombastic reveal. Usually I like to do something a lot more substantial in my videos, but this project was also a lot. So I don't feel too terrible about once in a while just doing like a prototype, a part one to a project, because there's definitely going to be more of this. I'm going to be working through the process of troubleshooting this, and once they're able to actually be walked in more efficiently, they're also going to have some costume pieces, you know, built on top. If you enjoyed the prototype of this build, part one of this, please subscribe, maybe like the video. As always, tell it it's pretty in the comments for the algorithm, because I have no idea how this video is going to do. This is definitely more of like a passion project. And of course, after I get this figured out, there's going to be a whole costume coming and a set of videos to go along with that. I'm making a really elaborate Mothman costume because I like Mothman. Obviously, if you have any advice or feedback for this in the comments, I'm all ears, and any ideas to make these just like a little bit more functional, because this is very much my first forte into anything like this, anything mechanical. I would love to hear any of it so I can begin to start making these functional and walkable. As a final note, a huge thank you for this video goes to my partner who helped me so much with this. I feel very confident in saying that I couldn't really do this in any kind of efficient way without him. It would have taken me a billion years to do the exact same thing, and it just really came in handy that I have a partner who is a mechanic and is way more familiar with this kind of stuff than I am. This is, I would say, is like a true collab between the two of us. He probably even did more than half of it, because he did a lot of the really, really annoying parts. So I just wanted to, you know, say thank you to him, and everyone else. If you enjoyed this video, say thank you to him in the comments too. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching till the end of the video. I know this is weird, but I hope you liked it. But as always, the biggest thank you for this video, and every single one of my videos, goes to my patrons, and especially my executive producers, who I very much could not go on this endeavor without, because even this was really, really expensive.
Eileen, Hesta Boone, Doomsday Outlaw, Alfair Nightingale, Ty Bear, Cinderus, Speak of the Devil, Tiro2, Donna Shipley, Mystic, Scribble, Mushroom Sita, Ghastly, Galaxy Stardust 035, Luxabar, My Name is A, Miss Fenris, Becca, Nylud Nam, Cyrus Orion, Jenny Craftsma, I Do TKD, Ren, Band Off the Yellow, Cloud Max, Velly Smilly, Stabby Horse, Heebie Jeebies, Cardia X, Christina Kimtia Art, Fiasco, Mossy Raven, Silver, 2 Prism, I'm not saying that name on the internet, ABW Makes, Icecavan, A Wendu, Liana, Ermler Jean, Breza, PNG Not Found, Freedom and Gus Gus, Dodo, Agent Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Sushi McNushi, Hypnos, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.
Who's a good girl? Are you a smelly girl that has to get scratched with the feet sometimes? Cause you stink? Are you stinky? Toast! Come here, buddy. There he is. He's a good boy. You wanna give us some purrs? Are you being bashful tonight? You wanna say hi? Very good.